Imagine you're walking down the street and suddenly stop because someone is standing right in front of you. The same facial features, the same shape of the eyes, even a mole above the lip in the exact same spot. They raise an eyebrow in surprise and do it exactly the way you do when you're nervous. This isn't your reflection. This is another person. Sounds like the beginning of a thriller, right? But for millions of people on this planet, it's not fiction. It's everyday reality. We're used to calling them simply twins. But have you ever wondered what lies behind this identity? Is it a biological success, a glitch of nature, or something much deeper? Something science has been unable to explain for centuries? To understand the magic, we need to look at the numbers. There are two scenarios for how copies appear: fraternal, dizygotic. This is when two different eggs line up for life. They're as similar as a regular brother and sister. They just shared the same womb. Like two different passengers in the same compartment. Identical, monozygotic. And this is where the mystery begins. A single fertilized cell, for reasons unknown, suddenly decides to split into two. It's a biological glitch that results in two people with completely identical DNA. Essentially, natural clones. But does having the same genetic code make us the same people? Is our choice really our choice, or are we simply following a program written into our cells? There are stories that logic alone can't explain. The most famous is the story of the Jims, Jim Springer and Jim Lewis. They were separated at just 4 weeks old. They grew up in different families, hundreds of kilometers apart, unaware of each other's existence. When they met 39 years later, the world was stunned by the facts. Both worked as sheriff's deputies. Both bit their nails and suffered from tension headaches. Both smoked the same brand of cigarettes and drank the same beer. Both named their first sons James Allen. Both named their dogs the same, Toy. And the strangest part, their wives. Both first wives were named Linda, and the second, Betty. It feels like a cosmic joke, but what if this genetic script is something humans are trying to write themselves, playing gods? Where wonder ends, a cruel experiment sometimes begins. In the 1960s in the United States, psychiatrist Peter Neubauer set out to answer a question: what truly shapes a person, nature, genes, or nurture? He did something that today would be called a crime against humanity. Identical triplets, Robert Shafran, Edward Galland, and David Kellman, were deliberately separated at birth. They were adopted into 3 different families: wealthy, middle class, and working class. The parents were never told their child had brothers. They found each other by accident at 19. It started like a Hollywood fairy tale. Robert arrived at college, where everyone greeted him as Eddie. When they met, they realized they were identical. And when the story hit the newspapers, a third brother, David, came forward. At first, they became stars. Parties, shows, a shared apartment. They were amazed that they even laughed and sat the same way, but behind the joy there was darkness. It turned out all 3 had suffered from severe depression since childhood and a feeling that a part of their soul had been torn away. The experiment that was meant to give science answers simply broke their lives. Edward couldn't bear the weight of his fate and took his own life. This story, told in the documentary 3 Identical Strangers, forever changed how the world views the ethics of human research. It proved one thing: the bond between twins isn't just a bonus from nature, it's a necessity for life. If the triplet story shows how a broken bond can destroy lives, the story of June and Jennifer Gibbons shows how a bond that's too strong can become a prison. They were born to a family of West Indian immigrants and grew up in Wales. From an early age, the sisters were inseparable, but in a very unusual way. They completely ignored the outside world. The girls refused to speak to anyone except each other. Even with their parents, they communicated only through gestures. But inside that silence, life was intense. They created their own language, cryptophagia. It was an incredibly fast blend of English and a Barbadian dialect that no one else could understand. It wasn't just a set of sounds. It was their private reality. The Gibbons sisters' synchrony was unsettling. They would lift a cup at the same time, blink at the same time, take a step at the same time. When they were separated into different schools, they fell into a state of catatonia, simply shutting down and stopping all movement. Yet behind this seemingly perfect unity, there was a real war. In their diaries, they wrote, "My sister is my shadow. She is killing me, and I am killing her." Their bond became so toxic that they began to see each other as enemies they couldn't live without. They came to a chilling agreement. For one of them to become free and live in society, the other had to die. After years in Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital, when they were about to be transferred to a lower security facility, Jennifer suddenly told a journalist, "Marjorie, I'm going to have to die. We've decided." That same day, she died from sudden heart inflammation that doctors couldn't explain. Immediately after her sister's death, June began speaking normally for the first time in her life. But if everything is so shaped by genes and connection, why don't twins become exact copies in every way? This is where epigenetics comes in. Imagine DNA as a vast library of instructions. In identical twins, these books are the same, but life is the reader who chooses which chapters to open and which to skip. One twin might experience intense stress, activating a disease gene that remains asleep in the other forever. And now the most unsettling part. There are so-called stranger doubles, doppelgängers, people who aren't related but look identical. Mathematicians estimate that with a 99% probability, each of us has at least one double. There's even a project called I'm Not a Look-alike, where photographer Francois Brunel finds people who look like twins but share no genetic connection. This means that somewhere in the world, right now, your copy might be having breakfast, reading the same book, or watching this very video just like you. And that raises the ultimate question. What makes you you? Your face? Your DNA? Or the choices you make every day? Twins are nature's way of showing how we can be incredibly similar and completely unique at the same time. Even if two people share the same beginning, their endings will always be different because the soul can't be copied. Would you want to meet your double? To see yourself from the outside? To look into eyes that aren't yours? Write in the comments. Do you believe in the twin connection? Or maybe you are one yourself?